wide as they came into the opening corner to stake a claim on that race lead, and it worked at this point.
At this point being the operative word. Rusty, good afternoon to you. This was awesome stuff. Two fast, young, talented New Zealanders, and there's so many of them in the championship, and they would war on the opening lap. And Rob spent a lot of the first half of the 4.46 Ks of this place on the outside, hanging on. And he was hanging on here to a little bit wide. He just grabbed the race lead, and then a huge slide, lost the rear of the car in the really tricky crosswinds that are happening at Phillip Island today, and spun the car out. Then just moments later, unrelated to that, but on the same lap, was this moment with Indira and Padiacci involved in the incident. Constantinides was involved, and unfortunately David Gregg and James Lodge, who has had an absolute shocker on his Michelin Sprint Challenge debut. That set up a restart, and then some of the best racing we have seen this weekend.
Just 6 minutes of action, and boy, we were afforded plenty of it. At this point, unfortunately, with the boxing going on, Tom Bewley goes out a little bit wide, but then decides to fight back as they come into Siberia. So he grabs second, but then watch this. In the middle, Santa Lucia 3 wide as they head towards the hay shed. Unreal. We were on the edge of our seat, and rightly so. Great racing.
Slingshot engaged. So too for this young man out of New Zealand. 2 from 2 for Willie Exton. The Kiwi on top, and he leads the standings heading into the third and final race of the weekend. An outstanding performance. He beat Jake Santa Lucia and Tom Bewley, and that move from Santa Lucia, the whole paddock was talking about that after the race. He went from 13th to 2nd in what turned out to be about 15 minutes of racing with that safety car in the middle. Now, conditions update. If you've been following our coverage all afternoon, a rain shower in the final 5 minutes of the GT World Challenge race, a slowly drying racetrack in First Focus Radical Cup. The question now is, what do you do? Is it dry or is it wet? Now, if not everybody, a vast majority of the paddock have gone for the slick tyre option. The Michelin slicks will be on the cars in this race. And the rationale behind that, and this is a good time to bring Thomas Randall in, is that while it might be a bit damp now, at the end of 43 minutes of racing, it will be dry if it doesn't rain again. So they've gone the slick tyre option, Tom, but gee, it's going to be dicey early.
Indeed, Crailsy. Good afternoon to you and Rusty. I'll tell you what, as a driver, this is very challenging conditions, and being also a standing start as well. When you're on cold slicks, it's really hard one to get right. You almost have to take off as if you're literally out on the road in a road car, low RPM, take off nice and gently. It feels really slow. And from these incredible drone shots, there isn't really much of a dry line. You can see a few drying areas or on the inside of the track, which is really challenging. And being such a long race, there's 41 minutes on the clock at the moment. So if you were to roll the dice and start on wets, there really is no rain arriving, so you just chew through those wet tyres and have to start on the slick and then have to go to slick. So I think the best option for everyone is to brave it out on the slick tyre at the start. Once they get up to temperature, the track is going to get drier, and you can see these shots here into Siberia, that the difference in the colouring of the track where it is dry and where it is a bit wet.
I've seen you and your mate Cam Waters with a quote-unquote road start. Anyway, Richard Crail's chopper is inbound for when we get off air at around 5 local time here. It's been a fantastic weekend at Phillip Island. The action we have enjoyed across all sorts of classes has been superb. Just in watching the highlights there of race 2 before as well, the debris and everything that was strewn everywhere off the end of the final turn had a couple of ripple effects. I've just seen Ryan Casher in the last few moments, and some of that debris damaged his car, and it affected him. He'll start this one just outside the top 10. And in talking with the DNA Autosport guys about what to do in this race, you've already alluded to the slick tyre scenario and probably what the track will be like at the conclusion of 40 minutes here. But a few of them were frantically, because of the rain at the end of the GT3 race, looking at changes that would soften things up. Were they going to be confronted with the car that needed to be a little bit more malleable given the conditions?
Well, it's tricky because with all this wind as well, the track will tend to probably dry up faster. But because it's cold, then that doesn't aid that process either. So with all that rain that we had towards the end of that GT3 race and leading into the Radicals race, I think everyone would, naturally panic and think, okay, we need to soften this car up and get it ready for this race.
I spoke to Matt Cook at Jones Motorsport. He's team manager there, essentially, team principal, working with Harry Jones on that 3-car program. And he said, yeah, we had to gamble. Well, not really a gamble. We made the executive decision to go for the slick tyre. It was the only common sense decision given the length of the race, but he said what we've done is we have softened the cars up to get better traction, to make the cars a bit more pliable in these conditions if it is slippery, and then it can sort of go the other way. If there is more rain a little bit later on, the car can be a little bit more adaptable if it does get wetter without having to chuck a wet Michelin tyre on. But the field is on slick tyres, so this is going to be pretty hairy. The question for mine is, what's the better side of the road to be on? And I reckon Jake Santalucia may have a little advantage here in terms of traction being on the left-hand side, which by the time the racing cars get there normally is sort of the natural side of the road. So he might have the drier side, potentially.
The tricky thing as well, Crazy, is all these painted lines, not only for the grid boxes, but the control line as well. So for those front two cars, in that first acceleration phase, they've got to cross quite a few painted lines, and that might make it tricky for our front row boys of Exton and Santalucia.
Been a perfect weekend so far for Willie Exton. 2 starts, 2 wins on the far side of your screen there. But for Santalucia in the Dexion Victoria entry, he was so close to nailing that first race. Car was fast, but it went off at big speed at the hay shed. So this could be a chance to maybe make amends for all of that in the final one of the weekend. It's a longer race. Green flag is waving. We'll talk a bit more about it. A little bit of an endurance aspect to Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge Australia. And a great start by Santalucia to Krause's point about whether there may be a little bit more in the way of grip out there, and you can even add to that the experience that Santalucia brings to the table. That's worked well for him. He leads them into one. Exton defensive to keep everyone behind him as they go into Doohan Corner for the first time. Look at the advantage for Santalucia already.
And now driving just tippy toes down to turn 2 with unknown grip levels on the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Drove that car away like it was off at the traffic lights, did Santalucia. Perfect launch for the Sonic driver. Exton did a good job in covering his line. The other big mover early was Lockie Bloxham, who made some ground in the McElroy car, 23. But where is he in that mix? Because Tom Bewley's up a spot, and so too Tyler Greenberg, I should say. So Bloxham was third into turn 1. He's gone back to 5th place. So something's gone on there with the Lockie Bloxham racing car on the exit of the Southern Loop.
I tell you, I reckon Jackson Rooney's looking racy here too. He's up a spot already and beginning to put pressure on that combo of Greenberg and Bloxham. So just keep an eye on that plain white Porsche too. He's had a nice start. It's Santalucia from Exton. Bewley is up into 3rd place. Bit's going to go on in this one.
Tough conditions here, Rusty, with everyone's tyre pressures coming up from the start of the race. And remember, these cars don't have ABS, so unlike the GT4 cars and the GT3 cars where you can rely on that in these sort of conditions, Santalucia out in front, he's the pioneer in these conditions, and they haven't been accustomed to these sorts of conditions at all at this point in the weekend.
Here comes Kasha. Is that, sorry, I beg your pardon, that is, in fact, that's on Exton. That's Bewley on Exton for 2nd place. So Tom Bewley flying here at the moment. Kiwi up to position number 2 now. Keep an eye on Greenberg in the background. So is Exton maybe just in these conditions not as comfortable right now? He's under a bit of pressure. I think Rooney's been able to get by in the background as well, so he's picked up potentially another spot, up into position 5.
This is his 3rd ever Porsche race, so you can understand a little bit of trepidation. Eric Constantinini's in pit lane in the up to 11 racing entry, now run by McElroy. He was involved in that incident earlier. Unbelievable livery on that car this year, by the way. It looks absolutely stunning in the bright sunshine we've had here early in the weekend. It really pops. That's the dry line through turn 3 and the run down the braking zone into 4. Look at Greenberg hauling in Tom Bewley. Exton defensive. Rooney going around the outside. This is a busy little battle pack here.
That's Murad. He's through
too.
too.
Kamal Murad, so really impressive stuff from him. Rooney following through, Bloxham dropping like a stone at the moment, and Ryan Kasha has charged his way up into the top 8.
Santalucia, sorry, that's on 4.9 seconds already, the advantage.
And everyone just trying to stay off all the curbs at the moment because they're all slippery with all the water that's gone on them. Off the curbs, you want to stay off the white lines as well around here. And anyone that's going for a manoeuvre down the inside, it's just being a little bit gingerly as we see a big outside front left lock up in the background. But when you're going for an overtake in these conditions, passing down the inside, guys, you haven't had cars down the inside much, so it's actually damper on those parts of the track. So it's a challenging one, but I tell you what, Murad is making up some ground here, isn't he, Rusty?
Most definitely. That was Flack, I think, in the background at MG Corner too. Didn't lose a spot in the process, but I think I got a little loose down there. So this is the fight for second place. Bewley versus Greenbury. Santa Lucia now has 5.2 seconds. He is flying, and with the fastest lap so far, not surprisingly, it's a 1:35.89. Bewley's car dances a little where it might still be damp there off the exit of 2. They work up towards Stoner Corner. Santa Lucia lighting up the board, and Bewley's doing the same in response.
Hasn't won a Porsche race. He had a best of a second last year at Shell V-Power Raceway. Big Sand Greenbury gets up the inside of Bewley and wrestles second spot away, but he went very deep under brakes, and he'll pay the penalty for that. He'll still get a nose up the inside, just enough racing room given from Bewley on the outside, and he gets the spot back. So good little exchange between them. Tyler Greenbury showing his quality and class and experience in these conditions today. My point about Jake Santa Lucia, he had a second at the Bend last year in challenging conditions in an early morning race. It was quite damp and about 3 degrees as well. So his pace was strong. Murad looking down the inside. How about this move on Willie Exton? Gets the spot. Exton switchback at MG, but the number 7 car has got real pace at the moment.
Yeah, lighting up the timings at the moment, boys. Purple Sector 1 and Sector 2, just in behind Willie Exton at the moment. So that car, maybe they've made a setup change here that's just suiting these conditions, because he is rapid out there, feeling super confident in these somewhat damp conditions. As we see a move here, Greenbury on the inside of Bewley into turn number 1.
Oh, can he hold it? Big pace through Dewan Corner, but gets the move done. And there's Murad in the background. So for the Cup Car Engineering team, once again, they've got both cars in the top 10. That older entry, the Class B car, Daniel Quimby, is in 9th place at the moment. So a couple of young drivers, teenagers, really starring in this race for that squad. Good drive by Murad, who's up into 4th place.
He's been plying his trade in international open wheel racing in a whole bunch of different F4 series around the world. Lockie Bloxham continues to struggle at the moment and has got Daniel Quimby looking to go around the outside. Ryan Casher up to 7th. I think you and I had the same conversation with Ryan before the race at separate times, and he said, man, I've got so much speed in this car. I'm really confident with it, but it just hasn't played the game. And yeah, lost the front splitter with that debris at the final corner, and the car had massive understeer in the back half of race 2 earlier today. So really struggled, but right now he's passing his way forward. But I wonder if all that open wheel experience in F4 categories, so he's raced in the UAE F4 Championship, in the Italian F4 Championship, and the US Championship. Murad absolutely flying.
You could argue this. I mean, this is a tin top formula, but there are a lot of things from that single-seater experience, Tom, that apply here. It's very relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the biggest shift when you go from single-seater racing to tin top racing is how much you can lean on another car when you're battling them. In open wheelers, you can't really lean on one another because you can interlock wheels, where here you can rub up and actually use the panels and push the door-to-door racing, which is what we see whether it's in Porsche or supercar racing. But I tell you what, you know who's lighting up the timing charts? It's Tyler Greenbury. Just took over 1 second out of Santa Lucia on that last lap. So the gap's coming down to 4.5 seconds.
I love that Tyler's still racing, because he would have every excuse to put the helmet to the side and focus on his business, which is Tyler Greenbury Racing. Hugely experienced go-karter and a multinational champion and international go-karter back in the peak of his young career. Tried to make the career as Quimby. Looks to the outside of Casher, couldn't quite get it done. Run in the V8 Touring Car Series, 3rd tier V8s for a while, did Tyler Greenbury, and had a really good season in a privateer Ford Falcon. Then decided to sort of step back, build the go-kart team. He's since come back into Porsche racing with this plan of having a pathway for his own young drivers to take his own drivers, rather than farming them off to another race team, keep them in-house, right on. But the fact that he gets to drive as well, and just remind people how good a quality race car driver he is great stuff. And he is slowly but surely catching Jake Santa Lucia in the lead of the race.
Let's get an update from the lane. Here's Chris.
Just letting you know, Eric Constantinides, our retirement in the race so far, the drive shaft has gone in that one. So his weekend is done. So disappointment for Area Cloud and the cybersecurity group with their entry there with Eric.
Stumps in the lane there. Now, little lock up down at MG corner. I don't think that's the last time we'll see one of those. You can clearly see the drier aspects of the bitumen now around the place, but there are still some damp little patches to keep aware of. Rooney continues the chase for Exton. Murad ahead of them there in fourth position. So Santa Lucia's lead is down to 4.4 seconds now. Greenbury with the fastest lap of the race so far with a 1:32.54. This shot on high shows you there down at Miller Corner as everyone sort of filters through. You can see already that Santa Lucia is through Siberia.
Tom, I wonder, has there been a few different things thrown at these cars, and some people might have gone more extreme wet or leaning towards a wet setup than the other, and as the track dries, some cars are sort of coming back to the field, Willie Exton being one of them, who now has got serious pace, whereas he really struggled earlier.
Well, I think this would be suiting the cars that may not have actually made as many changes at this point in the race, because we're approaching lap times. I mean, the fastest lap in the previous race was a 32.4.
Yeah.
And we're now down into mid-32s, and I'd say on this lap would be heading to maybe even go faster than the previous race. So for those cars, for those drivers and teams that perhaps left the setup similar to where they finished race 2, this could now be at the point of the race where it's really helping them.
Bit of an art in all of that, because you're using, you know, what is Phillip Island likely to be confronted with as Bewley sets a new fastest lap, 1:32.00, and then trying to read ahead and think about what the conditions will be at the end of this longer race and so on, and then collectively coming up with something that you'll think will be the right call. Not easy done.
Well, not only that, but these cars, unlike GD3 and GT4, they're not in the pit lane, so they don't get as much time to make these changes and prepare, and that's where they had to make a decision, an executive decision, if you like, with a lot of time in advance, because they're all the way down, parked at basically turn 4, so they've got to be in the dummy grid before all that.
That's a really good point, and I asked that question. I said, what if you take the gamble on wets, or maybe do a pit stop and put wets on? And the teams basically all said it's about 3 laps the way they do it. So they only go up there with possibly one air gun on the trolley that they take up to pit lane, but maybe some battery-powered ones as well. So the advantage that you get by being on the right tyre later, it's still far, far too big to make up that the time that you would lose by putting a wet tyre on at some point in this race. So they had to commit to the slick tyre, and at this point it is the right call.
And what race control would have done before the race, they declare the track wet, and that's when you're allowed to...
It gives you the option, doesn't it?
Correct. You get the option of running a wet tyre as side by side here through the final corner, blocks them. And is that Kasha?
I think that's Exton there.
Sorry.
And Rooney's running with them. The pair of them nearly make contact there. But I reckon this gets back to what you were talking about before. As this race goes on, Exton's car seems to be getting better. So he's back in the fight again here now. He's lost positions back down to 4th, but or 5th, and he's fighting with Murad here. He's got a bit more energy about him all of a sudden here now, doesn't he?
Greenbury flying out in front. This is a great battle. How was the side draft there as they got down there? It wasn't quite full Cam Water spec because he was too far up the side of the car, but that was 275 kilometres an hour down towards turn 1 for these two cars, almost bashing wheels. Good racecraft. These young drivers, level of ability that they carry into this is quite extraordinary. And Willie Exton's got the presence of mind to flash the high beams to try and get Murad a little bit distracted, perhaps. Good luck.
I thought Rooney was going to get in on the action there. And
drive past them both.
Exactly. So he just thought he'd do the sensible thing and let the battle in front play out. So the other thing to consider here, guys, is this dry line that's approaching. The track is now super fast. We're seeing times in the 31s. So just on that last lap alone, Greenbury was 7/10 faster than Santa Lucia, but the track's fast, but on the dry line. So the moment you step off that dry line, it could make things very tricky.
We see this so often in the sport, doesn't it? The track almost, it gets cleansed and refreshed, and then lap times go really quick when it dries out. And right now, a 31.7 isn't far away from the 31.1 lap record that Oscar Target set here last year. Only 6/10 off the record.
Was that like a wine review for Richard Crail?
Refreshing and bold.
Okay, bit of activity happening in the pit lane here, and we'll get
this is
onto that.
I think a team that decided to start on the wet Michelin, Rusty, and that's David Vallio, who's actually in a car that used to be driven by Sergio Perez. GT Racing had a ripper day today in the Gaia Valmont racing car. These two are mates, and I saw Serge wander down to the Porsche paddock and said, mate, you're a GT World Challenge now. What are you doing? Coming back and visiting some friends. He goes, oh no, that's my old car. So he was just checking in to see how Valio was going. He, in his first race meeting, has decided clearly to start, I think, on the wet weather Michelin tyre.
Oh, I don't think those wet tyres will probably ever get used again, guys. I'd say they are absolutely torched.
Watching a couple of other performers in the field that have had tougher weekends. Hunter Robb is in 12th place, and Lodge is lighting up the timing monitor at the moment. And given the way that that car has been hit left, right and centre, that's actually pretty impressive. He's knocking on the door of the top 10 too. Hopefully they can sneak that 39 into the 10 before the end of this race.
Yeah, just needs a solid finish, really, doesn't he? Just get some points and get some confidence, and these conditions will give him that. Here he is in the middle of this battle pack. He's got Lockie Harburg in front and Hunter Robb in behind. A couple of contenders here that their teams are really confident about what the season will bring to. Lockie Harburg, the thought down at Ilbamba Motorsport was he can now race the pros. Whereas before he might move out of the way for them, now he's got that confidence and that speed to go with the youngsters, even though he's a Pro-Am racer. And then the Vibe down off the road. Oh, Lockie, give him a wrap and sends it wide. The cover shop car will be covering his eyes for a moment, but rejoins. And the Vibe at Jones Motorsport about Hunter Robb as well is the same deal. Super fast, super committed, and will be a threat for victories and podiums as this year goes on.
Looks like Greenbury must have either made a mistake because Bewley's got in front of Greenbury. He's made a pass on him, and that relinquishes Bewley, who was staying with Greenbury. Greenbury was lighting up the timing sectors, but Bewley was only just 2 tenths behind him, so he's made that move, and now it's going to be down to him to try and attack Santa Lucia. So the gap now from Santa Lucia to Bewley is just under 5 seconds, but still plenty of time remaining in this race, guys.
Just need to see if Greenbury recovers from there too, Tom, because he's only 0.6 behind Bewley. So that's a bit of a potential feisty contest, that Bewley v Greenbury for second spot. Santa Lucia still has nearly 5 in the pocket as far as the advantage is concerned. It's 4.8 seconds. And then we go back to these two who are continuing to fight. Murad and Exton over 4th place as our commentary box gets a bit of the hippie show going on with the wind around.
It's insane. Here's a move, potentially. A little touch of the brakes there for Willie Exton, just as he pulled out of the draft to get the car turned into turn 1. Murad had to defend and cover his line in there, so takes that long, low approach into 2. And does that open the door? I reckon Exton was about to stick the nose up the inside of 2. This a little bit further back. Lodge is going to get a spot here and gets one on Quimby. And around the outside goes Hunter Robb.
Keep in mind, the caveat there is Quimby's in the older gen car, isn't he? So he's actually on balance against those two, doing a great job. And look at this here.
So it did tee off, didn't it? And it has dragged Rooney into that fight now as well. And Lockie Bloxham and Ryan Casher for DNA Autosport has tacked onto the back of this. So all of a sudden, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th position all boxing on.
And this is all going to help James Lodge as well, who's just moved up into 9th position.
Casher's out of Siberia. He's made that work. He's got the job done.
Or has he? He was very wide, almost into Santa Lucia, where he ran wide at turn 1, in race 1, I should say, and fired the car across at Lukey Heights. So Casher up a spot.
In that conversation we've both had around the debris and the damage to his car before, he said to me that getting back in a one-make series has been a really good thing. He's super positive about that, but he goes, man, it's competitive.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So that's the overwhelming reaction from so many of them, isn't it?
They play for keeps.
Yep.
This fight continues. Exton still locked up under the rear wing, the Michelin logo on it, and this time perhaps the move is on at turn 1. Got a really good run out of the final corner, a bit of toe, couple of extra Ks of straight line motivation, and gets that spot done. So Exton will move himself back to 4th position.
Murad there really lost a bit of time. As Exton went through and Murad was on the outside, he's obviously on the damp part of the track as well and lost a lot of time.
Casher.
Yeah, and now we've got the battle behind Casher and Rooney as we go around turn number 3.
Marching forward. Casher gets the spot. Murad, his next target, and Lockie Bloxham looks to go around the outside.
Some interesting CVs among this lot for what they've brought to Michelin Sprint Challenge. So Kasha, off the back of driving a French mark in TCR Australia front-wheel drive, has been in 86 competition, but he's doing a ripping job. Picks up another place here at the moment. And Rooney was a star rookie in the 86 series in New Zealand, but has had a bit of time on the sidelines. Very, very good go-karter over there as well, and has put something together for a couple of events. And I think, as Richard talked about in commentary for race 2 today, hopefully this has been enough to make a few people go, hang on a minute, let's get behind this bloke for the rest of the series.
Yeah, picked up the phone to Rob Woods at TechWorks and said, look, I want to be there. I'm working on budget. I'll try. Woodsy said, well, if you get it together, I'll have a car for you, and it'll be a fast one. And I'm so glad they've been able to do that. Tony Quinn Foundation on the bonnet of that car, TQ, doing great things with young driver support out of New Zealand. Santa Lucia leads the margin out to almost 7 seconds now over Bewley and Greenbury, with Exton next, then this fight. And Ryan Kasher is the man on the march with great car speed at the moment. Kamal Murad under pressure. Rooney looking to find a way past, and Bloxham looking to follow him as well.
A couple of the gaps worth noting. So Kasher to Exton is only 0.8 of a second, so that is in the fight for 4th place. And the pace for Greenbury, that was so strong early on, has dropped away. He's now 2.4 seconds behind Tom Bewley. No one has an answer for this bloke in the Dexion entry. 7 seconds ahead of Tom Bewley. That's the lead for Santa Lucia.
And that could be potentially a pressure thing, whether or not they've set the pressures in that car higher to combat those damp conditions at the start of the race. We saw how strong Greenbury was for the first 10 laps of this race, and now he's really dropped off the pace. So whether or not he's just trying to back it off and just relax the tyres, cool it down and have another attack. But if they bump those pressures up, that would explain, I'd say, why that number 6 machine has lost a lot of pace, because in the first and second sectors alone, just on this lap, he's lost already a second to Bewley. So Bewley almost matching Santa Lucia on this lap, but at the start, Santa Lucia not as fast as Greenbury. So I'd say the 777 Porsche maybe roll the dice, slightly lower pressures, knowing it's obviously going to be a long race. And okay, if I can just survive these first 10 laps in the damp conditions, we're going to be okay for the rest of the race.
17-year-old continues to lead in the margin, 7.5 seconds, looking for a maiden victory, and it would lock him into the podium for the round. Yes, just by a couple of points over Tyler Greenbury, if they finish the way they are as well. So the podium in Michelin Sprint Challenge is for the weekend overall points over the 3 races. Exton leads, 2 race wins will do that for you, 163 points as they run. Bewley would be second, Santa Lucia third. If Greenbury can get Bewley, it changes the scenario a little bit, and that might affect where Santa Lucia lands in the overall result. But right now, he's doing everything he possibly can. He's out in front, he's leading, managing this race nicely with 16.5 minutes to go. And this would be a big result, Rusty, for Sonic, who have had a challenging couple of seasons, it must be said, from a results point of view, but a really good podium for Marcus Flack at the Australian Grand Prix and Porsche Painted Dixon Carrera Cup a couple of weeks ago. And they've worked hard on their young drivers. They've grabbed a couple of kids out of Formula Ford like Jake Santa Lucia. Should mention Connor Summers, unfortunately unable to put a budget together so far for this year, but he was part of the team last year and had some promising results. And they would love to see another one of their own, out of their own Formula Ford program that was been so famous, taste some success in one-make Porsches.
Gee, it's been a great, factory is not the right word. That's the very wrong word for me to choose. But you know what I'm saying? The way they have been able to build, turn out great races and help them on that pathway. So Sonic continuing to do that in this class. And Santa Lucia, I think, would be more than mindful of what happened in race 1. This would be a nice payback for all that work from that team if you can 100%. Lock that away.
Yeah, the drive through the field was one of those paybacks, I think. But yeah, you're right. Here's Bewley. Just working his way past John Papantonio in the 96 Pro-Am entry. South Australian driver. Raced at the Ben Motorsport Park last year, which will be a stop on the tour later this season. The Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge will visit 4 Shannon Speed Series rounds across the course of the season. So we're at Sydney Motorsport Park in a couple of weeks' time, and then up to Ipswich in the Paperclip, and looking forward to getting back to Queensland Raceway. That venue has been completely transformed with Tony Quinn and his team at the helm, and then Shell V-Power Motorsport Park, and then a couple of Supercars Championship rounds as well for Sprint Challenge up on the streets of Townsville, Reed Park Street Circuit. That's a great event, and Porsches are awesome there. And then the final round will be at the Sandown 500, just up the road in Dandenong, Springvale region of Melbourne, and can't wait to round out the championship there at that Supercars event.
Yeah, fantastic event for these guys to be a part of, and I mean, to be able to race one of these cars on the streets of Townsville, support build to Supercars, and being the Michelin Sprint Cup Championship is pretty fantastic. So it'd be great to have them up there with us for not only Townsville, but the Sandown 500.
They're very much looking forward to you being their support category tops that weekend.
I'll be cleaning the track for them.
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I doubt you'll get many 8 a.m. sessions. It's a great program. We found as well in the Porsche world that just having that experience on a street circuit at this level has been valuable for drivers stepping into Carrera Cup, which has a bunch of street circuit rounds, including the Gold Coast and the Velo Adelaide 500 at the end of the year.
Yeah, and those tracks, Crails, are pretty daunting, especially when you're in Porsche Carrera Cup going there the first time. Is that a car slowing or maybe just getting out of the way for blue
Lap
flags?
traffic, yep.
But, yeah, they can be pretty daunting. There's so much commitment required for whether it's Gold Coast or the Adelaide 500 street circuit. So to be able to get a taste of it in Michelin Sprint Cup Challenge at Townsville, it's the perfect street circuit to go to, especially if you've never driven on one. And when you've got those walls close to you, it can be very daunting as a first timer, but it's kind of one of those things where you've got to pretend that those walls don't exist. Let's head down the lane to Stubbsy.
Team at Sonic Motorsport. I was just going to see if I could jump in here with Michael Ritter, the team boss. Michael, Jake has done an outstanding job. Clearly he's got the pace. How have you dealt with him across the weekend after that earlier error, or did you even not have to say anything to him?
Nah, look, at the end of the day, it's, yeah, he made an error, but he knows that, and he's harder on himself than anyone. It's just a small mistake, and at the end of the day, he's still, he's very young and still learning, but he's recovered great, so.
You've dealt with plenty of good young talent. What makes him most impressive to you?
Look, he's an incredibly hard worker and very intelligent. He's very as committed as anyone I've seen. So he's got one goal, and that's to become a pro.
I know you're a very busy man. Can I ask just about the setup and how, as a team, with these changing conditions and the drying track, how much did you go wet? How much did you just keep it a dry setup?
No, we didn't change much. It's fairly standard. It's just about managing the tyre in the long race, and he obviously did a great job early on, and just now all about managing it.
That's it. Fingers crossed he gets to the line and he gets the result that he deserves.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks.
He's a pro at running a race team and a pro at ducking on the questions too. Well done. We love him. We love him. He's just he doesn't waste words.
No.
He's so succinct, and he only says what he means. I love that stuff. It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's a reason that most of the drivers have come through Sonic over probably 30 odd years now. Most of them have gone on to remarkable careers. Yeah. It's very cool. A team that started with the Davison family back in the day. Will Davison in Formula Ford, that iconic battle of the Wills in Formula Ford racing. Will Davison versus Power, and both had incredibly successful careers. And then there have been multiple champions in Michelin Sprint Challenge with a host of different drivers, and then Porsche Carrera Cup as well. They're a great exponent of the program, focusing purely on the one-make Porsches at the moment with Bob Jane T-Mart's cars. Their Formula Ford program was ridiculous. Most successful open wheel team in Australia. This race continues. Sancho Lucia 8.5 seconds out in front now. There's just over 10 minutes remaining. Ryan Casher was able to make some moves earlier, so he's fourth. Willie Exton fifth, and just consolidating to try and bring that car home for the round result. He's only 0.4 of a second behind Ryan Casher, so putting that pressure on, but Casher got the move done and looking to continue to march his way forward, but he's quite a way back from Greenbury. Murad in 6th, Bloxham 7th, Rooney 8th, James Lodge in 9th. We've talked about his story and dramas over the weekend. Hunter Robb in front of all the Pro-Am contenders is Daniel Quimby. Vote him for mayor, 11th position. And then Ramu Farrell leads the way in Pro-Am in front of Damien Flack and Lockie Harburg 3rd in the Pro-Am class. So Ramu would be the Pro-Am round winner if they finish the way they are. Harburg next, and then the comeback king, Damien Flack, who's had a very enjoyable weekend, I think, in the Sonic car.
takes a lot of great advice and support financially and things to make some of these programs for these races to come together. And I think in Tom Bewley's case, for example, I mean, there's been some very good people in the background from a guidance perspective. And one person I'd like to kind of give a little shout out to, and that is Rana Horan, a very, very good New Zealand rally driver. They've, from a family perspective, had a tough year or so, but he was unwavering in his support of Tom, let him use his own Porsche race car on occasion to go and get some valuable miles before he came to Australia. So those little things are invaluable for these races as they try and stitch together, deals and programs to surge forward in their careers.
Tommy, what do you do when you're Jake Santalucia and you're 8.5 seconds up the road and you've got 9 minutes to go? Like, what's your process? What do you do when you're in this position to make sure that you don't trip up now?
Well, Crailsy, I mean, it'd be easy to say, you know what, I'm going to put an arm on the windshield. As it looks like there's a move for Murad on. Oh, he's gone way too deep, pinched a right front, and he's going to fall in behind Bloxham. He had a crack, though, so can't fault him for trying, but like you were saying, Crailsy, when you're in the lead like that, about an 8-second buffer, it'd be easy just to back out of it and start cruising. But the problem is when you do that, that's when you actually lose concentration, the adrenaline goes down, and it probably doesn't sound right, but it's actually easier to make a mistake. So you're almost better off just driving the same as you've been driving for the first 18 laps so far, hitting your marks, making sure you get all your reference points right, because the moment you start to back out of it, or you end up thinking about other things, and then it could all just lead to making one error, maybe dropping a wheel, out-braking yourself, grabbing a curb on under brakes and pinching a right front, which is what we saw happening here with Murad. And that was a valiant effort going down the inside there, but unfortunately just a little bit too deep and couldn't quite pull it up.
Can we just say on the flip side of that how cool and calm Willie Exton was as all that's going on? I mean, he's obviously got the round overall result to think of off the back of 2 race wins. When he gets out of the car and Stubbsy or whoever has spoken to him, he's got this cool, unflappable kind of way about him, just and cool in crisis there as well too. Nice approach.
And the fact that he spotted that was happening and not managed to avoid a collision and just press on. So very mature driving. And like I said, Murad gave it a crack. Unfortunately, didn't pull it off. And he's, 1.5 seconds now behind Bloxham. Bloxham he's right in behind Exton now. So I don't know whether there's a little battle there on the timing. It's less than 1/10 of a second between those two. So those two are clearly having some sort of battle on this lap.
Just want to give a little shout out as well to Ben Taylor, who's running in behind Jake Santalucia in the Auticon car, Wall Racing, now running that program. I bumped into his mum and dad before the start of this race, and mum's pretty nervous. Dad put on a cool face, but I reckon he was a bit nervous too, Grant. But Ben, a little bit rusty. He's been out of the seat for a little while, hadn't had an opportunity to test very much before the start of the year. So he's just feeling his way back in, and these are challenging conditions, but Ben's doing a super job, 17th position outright. Change of position, Bloxham goes past Willie Exton. You won't want to drop too many more spots here, Exton, from a round point of view. He's still got enough points to win it overall, but the more positions he loses, the more points he loses from the overall weekend standpoint. So he's got a bit of a margin back to Kamal Murad, but yeah, conservative stuff here for Exton. And that car was not brilliant early, then it came good for a little while, and now it's just dropped off again in the back half of this race. The boys at TechWorks were telling me a story. They only got the car very late. It was held up in immigration and customs for, I don't know if cars go through immigration, do they, Rusty? I think it's customs is the word I'm looking for, as Stephen Moylan just bowls a wide down there at turn 4. Held up late in customs, only got to TechWorks late last week, and they had to do a bunch of work on it. They had to put a front tub in that car and do a bunch of work. Fuel cell needed to be updated. So TechWorks worked 60 hours in about 3 days to try and get the car put together and ready for Willie Exton to run this weekend. So clearly that team's done an outstanding job to prep it, and Will's done a good job of driving it as well.
I'm looking forward to seeing a Porsche on the next episode of Border Force or Border Security. We're on the right network for that too. So
Stuttgart password, no.
What's the lead now? 8.7 seconds. Santalucia to Tom Bewley, and Tom looks like he's safely You know, what have we got now? 5 minutes remaining in this race. Hopefully he can just hold on to that because he's got 3.9 seconds over Tyler Greenbury. So it looks like it's status quo up in front at the moment. A little bit closer in the gaps behind Ryan Casher versus Lockie Bloxham. Only just over a second there. We need to keep an eye on what happens with Willie Exton here as well in the final part of this race.
The other thing to think about as well is that a component of this championship, and one that the drivers desperately want to win, is the Jim Richards Endurance Trophy, which is a sort of series within a series for the longer distance race over each weekend. So one race at every Sprint Challenge round is the 45-minute race, and you get the most points in those races and you win the Jim, and the trophy is literally Jim Richards. So it's a trophy of Jim, which is really cool, and it's been won by lots of the great names that have come through this category over the years. So Santa Lucia looking to take an early marker in that one. That will roll on to the next round at Sydney Motorsport Park.
Very, very prestigious trophy, and I think I spotted both Stephen and Clay Richards getting ready for some racing in New Zealand next weekend. So if you're watching the coverage, a big g'day to the both of you. So nice that the Richards racing name continues on, isn't it? So it's great.
Porsche Carrera Cup Australia champion Stephen, and indeed was Jim, the very first one-make Porsche champion in Australia, 2003. The great man. Always good to see that family pop up at the racetracks.
Greenbury still with the fastest lap of the race. You've spotted something there. Come on, your arms waving in the commentary box. What do you got?
Oh, not much, unfortunately. I was just going to make the point that this would be an incredible recovery for Santa Lucia if he can hang on here and take this final race for the weekend of Porsche Michelin Sprint Australia, considering that massive off he had in race 1, out from the lead, finishing down in 13th. As it stands, he should still finish in 3rd position for the round. So he needs Bewley to finish 3rd in the race so he could get 2nd, but still, top 3 for the weekend after that off in race 1 is a great recovery.
Yeah, you'd take that after an off at the hay shed, wouldn't you? At any day of the week. And started race 2 this morning, 13th position. Got himself to 2nd. Some really great passes, and then a perfect start in this one from the outside of the front row and just drove away.
I wonder if Murad's going to get Exton here at the end. That would put Will Exton back to 7th in this race off the back of his 2 race wins. So just a little watching brief on that one at the moment.
He'd still have enough points to win the round, Rusty, but it's a law of diminishing margins. The further back you go, you don't want to drop any further. As quite predictably, the sun shines at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. It has been a very Phillip Island day today. Very windy. Started out beautiful though, and the conditions in the sunlight earlier on today were stunning. It was almost short sleeves kind of stuff. But then that rain squall came and swept across from the west and caused a bunch of chaos in the GTs and the Radicals, and a lot of head scratching in the paddock down in Porsche land before this one started. But now, at the end of what's been a spectacular start to the Shannon Speed Series this year, gee, there's a lot to look forward to, isn't there, boys, as the year goes on across all of these categories.
It's going to be a great year, isn't it, boys?
For all sorts of reasons, the Speed Series has the opening round. We've had a lot of entertainment, and collectively right across the board, I think everyone's just stepped up, haven't they? This class in particular, it is going to be a year to savour in Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge. There's no two ways about that. A real cast of bright talent, and you absolutely, even though it's been a great start for William Exton here, you cannot at the moment say one particular driver is a firm favourite over another. There is plenty that are capable of winning this crown.
Yeah, it feels like one of those on any given Sunday kind of seasons, doesn't it? Where if you're bringing your best, you're very good opportunity to win a race, possibly a round in Michelin Sprint Challenge this year. Murad continues to hassle the back of Willie Exton, who's back to 6th place. And he's got good car speed at the moment. And the Cup Car Engineering team have been super impressive in the way they've unloaded with these 2 cars this weekend.
And if you're Exton, you'd be getting a little bit nervous here with Murad all over the back of him, because the last thing that Exton would want, Crailsy, is Murad to make a move, or if there's any contact between the two when he's leading the round on points. So, yeah, this is going to be a daunting last couple of laps here for Exton.
Rusty's left the building to catch the private jet back to wherever part of the world he's going. Exton covers his line on the run down in towards turn one. Murad looking to send it around the outside of Exton. No mistakes here for Willie. Must get this car to the finish. And Murad's had a very big moment, hangs on as he runs wide on the exit, and Exton just bowled it wide at the southern loop, and Murad goes through anyway.
And these two still going at it here down into turn number 3, heading up to turn 4, and that was pretty close for comfort there, Crailsy, when we know what Exton's got on the line here, currently leading the points for the round. So he's got to be really careful here, Crailsy. There's probably only going to be, one more lap to go after this, and next time round will be the final lap of the race. And I wasn't really sure if Murad was going to get that move done, because he sent it around the outside here into turn 1, and we thought, wow, that's brave, and then just had a little wiggle off turn 1 over that curb, managed to gather it up. But I think what's happened is Exton's given him a bit, maybe too much room for the rejoin, and then it's put him wide, and through goes Murad. So it's a bit of a exciting exchange there on the run down into turn 3, but that's put Exton back to 7th now. So great move in the end from Murad as Kasha sets a purple middle sector. So the track is still getting quicker and quicker out there.
Yeah, it is. 31.7 fastest lap for Tyler Greenberry, but Ryan Kasha pushing on in 4th place. And the reason is he's only a 1/10 of a second behind. So there's actually a battle on here for 3rd and 4th place. Out in front, though, no battles for Jake Santalucia. He's just managing that margin. A little bit of traffic at the end of this one. 6.9 seconds the lead over Tom Bewley, who's had a really good debut in Michelin Sprint Challenge, the Porsche New Zealand junior selected driver. But what a drive today for Jake Santalucia. 17 years of age. You heard from Mick Ritter, the team boss at Sonic. So much to look forward to with this young man, so fiercely determined, quote, to be a pro. And this has been everything but a professional drive, and Greenberry goes around, and that is from 3rd position, and he's going to lose a couple more spots out of that as well. So Ryan Cash is going to end up 3rd, and for Jim Richards Endurance Trophy points, that's important. And Greenberry under brakes just locks the inside front, forces the edge car around, and that handed the position to Kasha, and Bloxham's going to get past 2. So a little bit of a late race drama, none so for this one, with brand new support on the side of the 777 Porsche from Dexion Victoria. Jake Santalucia, from the wildest of wild moments yesterday to charge through the field, and now his first ever Porsche victory. The 17-year-old has done the job at Phillip Island, and Jake Santalucia wins race 3 of Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge. Tom Bewley 2nd. Ryan Kasha will be 3rd. What a superb drive that is. And here's Willie Exton. This New Zealand star in the making will take the round honours overall. Enough points to get the big trophy and win round 1 of Sprint Challenge.
He hung in there at the end after that exciting battle between himself and Murad, but what a faultless drive from Santalucia. But only wasn't for that race 1 mishap through Hayshed, but excellent performance in what was the longer race of the 3. And what a shame for Greenberry on the last lap, just defending from Kasha, and pinched the front, locked the rears, and around he went.
Rami Farrell won the Pro-Am class, 11th outright. We just saw Lockie Harburg crossing the line. He was 3rd in class, just behind Damien Flack in that one. There's Ben Taylor who wins, and Daniel Quimby. Huge result for Quimby. Elections coming up, that's topical if you watch The Simpsons. Big job there, and 12th place wins Class B for the weekend. Confirming results, Santalucia, Bewley and Kasha the top 3. Lockie Bloxham, Murad and Greenberry ends up 6th. Exton 7th, but with enough points to win the round, and Farrell the Pro-Am winner with Quimby in 12th. The Class B winner for the round, and indeed the race, with a perfect score this weekend at Phillip Island. Notable there, James Lodge getting in the top 10. Highlights of the final race of a dramatic weekend for Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge on a track that started wet but was drying rapidly, and the field on slick tyres. And at the start, it was Santalucia from the outside line, I suppose, in the front row. Perfect start, drag race to turn 1, and from there he was never headed.
You picked it, Crailsy, before the start of the race, that Santalucia, the left-hand side of the road, was going to get that start. A few lunges. Greenberry was super fast at the start of the race. Got himself up in a 2nd position. for a period there and then sort of lost a bit of pace in the middle of the race. So plenty of battles going on all throughout the field.
Some good drives through. Tom Bewley made some nice moves. Willie Exton struggled a little bit early, then made some moves and then dropped back a little bit late. Tyler Greenbury was another one showing plenty of pace in the Edge Designer Homes entry. That's the blue, black and red car, and was on the box seat for a podium for much of this Jim Richards Enduro Trophy race.
Yeah, and then it just seemed like we spoke about Green. We lost a bit of pace and Bewley got back through, so he hung on to second place in the end of that race. And there was a little ding-dong battle, wasn't there, between Murad and Exton, and it all went down to the wire here. And Murad had a few attempts at some big moves, didn't he? Especially the one down the inside at Miller Corner, which unfortunately didn't work out for him later in the race. Kasha as well getting in amongst it as well, and this was that last lap spin for Greenbury. Such a shame when he was in that podium position, but I tell you what, faultless drive for Santa Lucia, grabbing his first win, like you said, in Porsche Michelin Cup, and I reckon the team at Sonic would be wrapped with that.
Special moment for this young man and the Sonic Motor Racing team with the famous 777, their winners here at Phillip Island.
Yeah, it really was a special race there for Jake Santa Lucia, and a little bit of emotion, I think, in some of the eyes of the team members here too. Jake, that must mean the world to you, your first win here in this competition.
Yeah, it means a lot to me and the team. It's been a while for me. I haven't won a race, I think, in 2 years, so to come off of last year where I felt a bit undeserved of a win, like we were very, very fast, and to come here, very strong opening round, heaps of pace, really fast the weekend, to get the win feels amazing. I actually don't know how it happened. I just got the launch, went away, and it just happened. So yeah.
That's it. Pretty tricky conditions at the start too. It was pretty damp out there still.
Yeah, so it was very tricky at the start, and I actually thought the track would ramp up a bit, but maybe because it's so cool, it didn't get much quicker. So yeah, I don't know how it happened. I was just driving around waiting for everyone to catch me, but Mick was telling me that the gap was getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, I'm very happy, very happy.
A stellar job, and it must be sweet too after yesterday. You had great pace, but the drama then when you were leading, this is really well deserved. You must feel so sweet after that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yesterday I'm not too fussed about it. I was just going a bit too hard, and probably learned a bit from that, not to push so hard in a high-speed corner like that. But yeah, I'm very happy. Very good job to the team, and the car looks great. The Dexion car stands out on track, and yeah, once again, I'm very happy.
Jake, you're learning and you're winning. You're doing it all. Congratulations. Enjoy the celebrations.
Yeah, can't wait.
What an unbelievable weekend it has been here at Phillip Island. When you've been here for two-wheel racing, we've been, thrown some pretty